Hello, welcome to part 31 of the Angular Complete series represented by tutorial polls, reactive forms. As we have seen already, template-driven forms. Now let's create the same form using reactive forms, with the only difference that we will use it to edit a book. So let's quickly create one component for editing a book. Type the command ng generate component edit book and press enter. Let the CLI generate the component. Also, if you see in the command, I have used full names as generate and component instead of using the alias of G and C. This is just to remind ourselves that we can use full names also. Alright, component has been generated. Open the app module DS and check under declarations it's been added. Alright, now let me create an initial HTML for edit book form. Let me copy it from add book component. Alright, as you can see here, I have done the initial form setup. If you see, this form and fields are same as what we created for our add book form, with slight modifications. See here, I changed the title as edit book, then also removed template variable from form element and removed the validations, name attribute and ng model from controls. Also removed validation message div for each control. And see here on the submit button, removed the click handler. In the TS file, copied the variables book categories and is submitted. And resolved the references. You know how, by pressing Ctrl plus space and then selecting the associated file. Also, see in app component HTML, replaced the add book selector with edit book component selector. Alright, let me run the app now. As you can see, our initial form setup is done and we can edit the book by populating the book details in this form. What we want to achieve in this reactive form is populate values by some means and modify them and save them back as edited book. As we have created already our add book form, we could have done the same thing in template driven form by populating the book object. But no, we will do it in the reactive way so that we could get a better understanding of the differences between reactive form and template driven form. Also, you will get to know both approaches so that you can make a decision on which approach to use in your next project. Alright, so let's begin. First, we need a form group instance and then control instance grouped under the form group instance. Remember ng form, which was providing the form group instance from behind the scenes, and also remember ng model, which was providing the access to form control instance in each control, which we had in template driven form. This time we are gonna reverse the flow. We will create these instances and we will pass the form group instance to the form element and form control instance to each of the associated controls. Contrary to template driven forms, where Angular was doing this instance creation for us and then we were getting the reference by using the template variables. Alright, open the edit book component TS. Type here public book form group of type form group and resolve the reference. See here, form group is exported from Angular forms. Now we need to initialize this variable with form group instance. Let's first create a private function. Type here private init form group open close parenthesis open close curly brackets. Here inside type this dot book form group equals new form group and open close parenthesis. Pay attention to this IntelliSense message where you see that we can pass a set of controls in the form group constructor. For now, let's pass an empty object in the constructor with no controls inside form group. Also, now after initialization, if you type this dot book form group dot and see, we are getting a lot of properties and functions which we can use from form group. We are very much aware of these properties and functions. Let's use the add function. So type the add control function. Add control function allows us to add controls explicitly in the form group. As you can see, it expects a name and form control instance, which extends abstract control class. Let's give the name as the title, new form control. And see here again, we can pass some more information associated to control in the form control constructor. If you see, the first argument is form state. Let's navigate to form control by pressing F12. And now see this line of comment where it says initializes the control with an initial value, or an object that defines the initial value and disabled state. Now go back by pressing Ctrl plus back arrow key. As per definition, either we can pass only the initial value here for control, or we can pass the object here which holds the initial value and disabled state for control. We will see this in a moment. For now, let me change this. Instead of adding controls explicitly, let's add all our controls directly inside the form group constructor, because we already know what and all controls we need. So let's remove this line of code and inside form group add an empty object. Type single quote, then title for book title text box, colon new form control, open close parenthesis. So you see here what we are doing is we are passing a key name as title with the form control instance. So we have added one form control inside the form group. Let's also add the controls for the remaining 3 form fields. So add comma here, copy the whole line and paste it 3 times and remove this last comma. Now change this title as an author, then this title as category ID and this last title as price. Alright, we have now our form group defined along with form controls inside grouped. Next, we need to bind this form group in form and control in each associated input field. Call this our newly created function from constructor. So type here this dot init form group. We can also call this function in ng-on-init if we have any dependency on the input property. As of now, we don't have any dependency on input property, so let's call it from here only. Now open the HTML file and on the form element bind the form group. To bind a form group, we need to type a square bracket here and then inside form group. So this is a directive which is used to bind a form group instance. Remember, JavaScript is case sensitive. So type this properly. As you see, G is capitalized here. Then here inside as value, pass the book form group variable which holds the form group instance reference. If you save the changes and run the application is running. And if you inspect the console, you will see an error. No provider for form group. The reason for this error is we have not imported the ReactiveFormsModule. Remember the statement where I mentioned preferring to stick to one approach, either template driven or reactive forms. And this is the reason why Angular has provided 2 different modules for each of these approaches. Let's open app module TS and see we have forms module already imported. Now we need to import the reactive forms module. Inside imports, type comma, then reactive forms module. Press enter and see it is also resolved from Angular Forms. Now you might be questioning why I have imported forms module and reactive forms module both. First and foremost is to demonstrate you we can use both modules together. Second, we have created an add book form in a template driven approach. So we need forms module for that. Moving forward, edit book form we are supposed to create in reactive forms. So we will be required reactive forms module. But when you will stick to one approach, you will need one of these modules based on your approach decision. Save the changes and see the browser. Console error is gone. Alright, now let's bind the form control instances to each of the associated input fields. To bind a form control instance to an input control, there are 2 ways we can do it. First is explicitly we can access the form control instance from the form group and bind it with the input field. Before we do anything here in HTML, let's open the TS file and add YouTube as the initial value for the form title field. And this will display YouTube as text. We will see more on it later, the possible ways of passing the initial value. Now just add it and go back to HTML. Now at least we will be able to see if our form control instance is working fine or not. So if the title field populates the initial value, we can say form control instance bound. Alright, the first way, as I said, to bind form control instance directly from the form group. So type here square bracket and inside specify form control, and then inside as value book form group dot get. Remember, get property of form group which can return you the form control instance by name. Open close parenthesis and give the control name which you want to bind. So type title. Remember, this name must match with the form control name which you have specified inside the form group. Save the changes and see the browser. Awesome. We can see the title value is populated as expected. It means the form control instance is bound properly. Also, here in HTML, we can access form control instances by using the controls property followed by key name. Let's see it. Remove code after the dot and then type controls, a property which returns you all controls in an object with keys. So type here dot and the key name as title, because the title is the key for title form control instance which we want to bind here. Save the changes and see nothing has changed. Initial value has been populated as expected. Just notice one thing. If we remove form group and its value from the form element and save the changes, the application is still working. That's the beauty of binding form control instances explicitly, but in general, this is not the preferred way. Let's see the other way. The other way is just to pass the form control name and let Angular find the form control instance by name supplied and bind it with the input field. So type here instead of form control name input property and value as the title within single quotes. Remember, to make this work using the form control name, the form control with the same name must exist inside the form group. Save the changes and see the browser. See here in console, it's showing the error. Form control name must be used within the form group. Remember, we have removed the form group. So let's add it back. So type here square brackets and inside form group and the value as book form group. You noticed here to use a form control name, it must have a form group as a parent. Save the change and see the browser. It's working again. Also, if you see, form control name is an input property that can be bound a variable name with the form control name. Based on the variable value, Angular will fetch the control from form group. This is useful in the cases where you want to resolve a control name dynamically. But here, as we are typing a hard-coded string, we can unwrap it from square brackets and pass the title without single quotes. Save the changes and see it's working as it is. Let's quickly do the same thing for all other controls. Copy this form control name along with the title value and paste it in the author. Change the title as author. Next, paste it into the category field and change the key to category ID. Also, in the price field, paste it and give the key name as price. Save the changes and see the browser. All controls are bound with their associated form control instance properly. Now let me quickly define a log function here. So public log, open close parenthesis and open close brackets, and inside console log this dot book form group dot value. Copy and paste the console log and change the value property to get raw value function. Remember when I told you this value property accessor excludes disabled fields. Let's validate the statement now. Now in HTML, let's add a button and give the text as log. Add a click handle and pass the function name as log. Give the class name as button space button primary. Now open the TS file again. And here in the form control instance, remove this title text. As we know, either we can pass initial text or an object with initial value and disabled state here. We have seen how to pass an initial value directly. Now let's see how to pass a value with the state. When we pass a value directly, Angular decides based on the supplied value on how to bind it. But if we pass an object, Angular expects value property inside the object to bind the initial value to the control and along with the disabled state, whether the control has to be enabled or disabled at the initial load. Let's do it. Let's pass an empty object first and save the changes and see the browser. The title field is showing the object. Reason is, when you pass the object, Angular expects value and disable property both to be defined. Let's add value property with empty value and then comma disabled as false. Now if you save the change and see the title field is empty. Let's set this initial text as Google. Save and see. Google is populated in the title field. Click on the log button and observe the console window. And see, we have logged object from both the console logs, that is .value and getRawValue function. They both are same as of now. We don't find any difference when we don't have any disabled property. Let's set disabled as true for title field. Save the change and see the browser. Title field is disabled. Also note from here, this is one of the ways we can disable the field. Now if you click on the log button and observe the difference in the console log, you will get a better picture. So title field is excluded in the first log, which is logged using value property. Alright. Now let me do a quick setup to demonstrate a couple of more things. As you can see here, I have added one button as toggle disable, which will enable disable title on click of it. It will make a call to toggle disable function, which we have defined inside the TS file. Two more buttons here that will patch and set value using form group and bound with the functions patchBook and setBook respectively. The reset form button will reset the form. Then I have one more button which will set the initial value for the title field. Now open the TS file and see the toggle disable function. Inside I am accessing the title form control instance using form groups controls property, the one which we have already used in HTML. Also we know we can use get function here. Let's change it to make code more readable. Remove this controls and property accessor and change it with get, open close parenthesis, and inside type title, the control name which we want to access. Now if you see here down on the next line, I am checking whether the control is disabled. If disabled, then enable it, else disable it. Then we have patch value function call on book form group. If you pay attention here, see I have passed only 3 properties, not supplying the price control value. What it will do, it will update the 3 properties and will leave the price field as it is. Next here, we are calling setValue function. And again we are trying to pass only 3 controls values. Remember, you cannot skip a control in the setValue function. We will see it in a moment. Next we have setValue, where I am accessing the title control from form group and then using the setValue function of form control instance. Alright, now save the change and see on browser. We have our title field disabled initially. Click on toggle button and see title field is enabled. Click on it again and see title is disabled again. So this is how we can enable disable control in reactive forms, contrary to template driven forms where we used disabled attribute in HTML. Let's type some value in author field and select a category, then add price. Now if we click on patch book button, see first 3 fields updated and left the price field as it is, which is awesome. If you click on log button and see in the console, the price field is intact. So using patch, we can partially update the form, which is not true in case of setValue. Click on Set Value button and see the console. As you can see, it is showing error that price property is required. Let's add price property here in set value with value as 50. Save the changes. Now here again let's enable the title field and type some value in title, add something in author, then select category and the price as 20. Click on Set Book button and see all the fields has been updated. Let's reload form. Again add some value in author, select the category and add some value in price field. Now click on Set Title and see the title is updated. Also notice from here, though the title field was disabled, but still we were able to update it programmatically. Now let's see about Reset button. Before you click, inspect the title field and see under CSS classes. It is showing as test, and if we type here in title something, pristine becomes dirty. Now click on Reset button and see it has not only cleared the values from the form, it also resets the control state to initial. Now open the TS file and see here I am calling form groups reset function. You can also use control specific reset by typing this .form group .get then control name and then .reset. Similar to reset, if you want to change any specific control state or you want to set control in a specific state, you can use associated functions on form control instance. For example, mark as pristine can be used to set control state as pristine and mark as untouched to set the control state as untouched. And there are other functions which can be used for associated states. Same functions can be used on form group as well to mark all controls inside the form into a specific state. Now let's remove these extra buttons added for demonstration purpose. Let the log button be there. Also remove these extra functions from the TS file. Now add a function type public update book, open close parenthesis and open close brackets. Inside type console log this dot book form group dot value, and then copy this function, go to HTML and in submit button add a click handler and paste the function name. See here, we are not required to pass any form group argument because we have that already in class. Alright, let me quickly show you one more thing. How do we bind callback event handlers in reactive forms? Let's define two functions. First, in TS file, type public on title change, complete brackets and inside type console log and pass this dot bookform dot get title and then dot value. Copy and paste the same function and change as on category change and change this title to category ID. Now go to HTML and add a change handler on title field and pass the on title change as a callback function. Then on category dropdown also add a change handler and pass callback function as on category change. Save the changes, open the console and observe the browser. Type anything in title and see function is firing the callback whenever there is a change in the title field. Same when you change category selection, change is firing the event and logging to the console. This is working, right? But this is a usual way of binding a handlers into the elements. But in reactive forms, as I said, most of the things we do in the code. We write as less code as possible in HTML. So remove the change handlers from category dropdown and also from title field. Now go to TS file and you know what we can use something called as subscription. Actually, we can subscribe all the observables. We will see more on observables later. For now, let's subscribe to value changes. Change these function names as underscore on title change subscribe. Make it as private and then underscore on category change subscribe and mark this also as private. Now call these methods from init after we have initialized form group. So here in ng on init, type this dot underscore on title change subscribe and then this dot on category change subscribe. Now inside title change subscription function, type this dot book form group dot get and inside title then dot value and see we have something called as value changes. Highlight this and see its return type. It's an observable of any. Use it and then dot sub and in IntelliSense see we have subscribe function. Complete it as subscribe. Woohoo! From the subscribe I remember to ask you, if you are new to the channel, please do subscribe this channel as well. That's minimum I want from you in return. Alright. Now here inside pass a callback function. Type value, arrow function and console log value. Now remove the remaining code from here. Then copy this whole code segment and in on category change, remove all the code and paste the copied segment. Change this key title as category ID. Alright, if you see we actually don't require two functions. So change the on title change subscribe to on change subscribe and then cut the code from on category change subscribe and paste it on this on change subscribe function and remove this empty function. Also in ng on init, remove this on category change subscribe call and then change this to on change subscribe. We will see more on subscriptions later. For now just know that observables can be subscribed and in subscribe we are required to pass a callback function which will get executed when there is a change in the observable. Save the change and observe the browser console. Make some change in the title field and see it's logging as soon as we are typing in the text box. Also if you change the category selection, see it's also logging as expected on every change. Awesome. So we have our form ready and we are now having more familiarity of reactive forms approach and various functionalities provided to use from Angular by a Reactive Forms module. If you are new to the channel, please do subscribe to the channel to show your support. A subscription will be a thank you token from your side to me. With that being said, thank you and see you in the next video where we will add validations in reactive form.